Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Golden Gates, and today we are building a slapper, a heater, a mini pendant with a large centerpiece stone using our prong setting, some other wire components, and I'm going to take you guys on the ride on how I put it together. And it came out pretty decent. I like it. If I put it on a chain and I rock it, poppin'. But stick around to the end of the video to see some of my other projects using the same idea, same components, just a little extra flair. Or you could skip to the end, it doesn't matter. Enjoy the video. So to begin this piece, you're going to need 3 different pieces, and here I'm showing you the majority of what we are going to be using. I have a full copper ring band in the back, a small to medium sized coil, and then the actual prong setting with the stone in it. If you want to follow along with this video, I will link my coils video, a ring band video, and a prong setting video. And these are just the 3 major components that we're using, and just gonna really hone in on these 3 pieces and work with what we have. Now here I have this small prong setting, but it doesn't end up making the cut, unfortunately. Just not enough room in the project. Now I wanted to keep this project as easy as possible so that anybody can do it. So I do the most basic and simple ties. They might not look the cleanest, but with some practice, eventually you get better. So I take my coil and I shaped it around the bottom end of my pear-shaped citrine, and I do 1 loop around the one side, just a very loose coil, or just a wrap really. And then I do on the other side another very loose wrap, so I can kind of move it around and shape it and place it to almost as close as to exactly as where I want it to be. So after some movement and, shifting around the coil piece, left or right, you can take your pliers and kind of tighten down that coil a little bit so it's kind of locked into place. And then you're going to do the same thing for the other side and start locking in the coil into place by continuing to wrap around those silver pieces. So I do at least 2 or 3 rounds on those silver pieces and end up clipping off that excess. But here I have an old ring that didn't turn out so well, so what I'm gonna do is take off everything on the top, so I just have the ring band itself, and I can use it as another layer to this pendant. So I took off all the stuff on the top, and I just have the ring band itself, and I'm gonna pull these front wires on each side. So on the left side, I'm going to pull these front wires forward. And then what I'm going to do is I have these 2 bottom wires from the prong setting, and I'm going to put them through the ring band. And I'm going to use those wires that I pulled forward to anchor the ring band in place. So we're going to take that wire that we pulled forward, and we're going to do a small anchor, just how we did with the copper wires earlier, and do a quick little loop around on top of the copper. It's not going to look the prettiest, but it's going to hold it for now. And then we are going to do the same thing on the opposite side so that we can shift and move the ring band as much as we need to get it centered and, feeling good. So once you're happy with where it's set, you can continue doing the coils over the copper, maybe just wrap it around 2 or 3 times, and then you can clip off the excess wires. So now that everything's clipped, go and take a break, okay? Go and sweep and mop the floors. Go clean something. It's therapeutic. So now all your floors are clean, you're feeling good. We're going to start working on these back wires, and now these wires were a bent up mess. So what I end up doing is try to pretty much cover it up. So I take I start taking the wires from the back and I start doing these little loops around the side and back kind of up towards the front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a weaving pattern so that we can pretty much hide um, the 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 way the wire looks. So I take maybe 3 of those wires and I loop them forward, and then I take the wire, the thick wire from the prong, and I bend it up with it, so now I have a strong base wire to do a nice weaving pattern with. So once you have that done, we're going to do the same thing to the opposite side, so we have a mirror and everything is symmetrical. So I'm also going to cut out maybe 2.5 feet of 30 gauge, and I put my wire on top and I go under the thickest wire that's there. Okay, starting the first I say coil, and we're gonna begin weaving our wires. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna push that coil all the way down, and then we're gonna get the 30 gauge wire in between all the wires, and we are going to go underneath the 3, over the top, back in between, and wrap it about 4 times. And then we're gonna go over the top through the middle again, and then we are gonna go underneath the thick wire and over the top 4 times. And this is a box weave. It just comes out slightly different because of the amount of reps that we're doing. And we're gonna continue that pattern until we have a decent length, and we're gonna save some wire at the end so we can tie down everything else. Now this is what you should end up with. If you end up with something else, don't worry about it, just use what you have and continue on making the piece. Now we're going to do the same thing to the opposite side, and what I do here is I kind of do like this weird spiral up the prong setting wires. It just gives it a little bit of dimension, and you know, it just looks really nice. So now we're going to turn our attention towards the wires in the back. So you should have 4 left. We're going to take the 2 on the left side, and we're going to get some 24 gauge half round, dead soft, and begin wrapping those 2 wires together. I go up maybe about a full inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, and it should look like this. So we're keeping it incredibly simple, nothing fancy. Once you tie down all these little simple things, it really just comes together. So we do the same thing to the opposite side, but instead of clipping the excess wire, we pull the 2 sides together, and then we use the excess on the right side and start tying those 4 together. So it's almost like a seamless weave. So at this point, this is where things get a little iffy for me, just in the final finish, just because I don't know, it happens like that sometimes. So I bend those wires forward, and I intended to use this as the bail, and I thought I'd have enough space and room to tie everything to the back of it, but it turns out it didn't work that way. So it's like a bail, but not a bail. You know what I'm saying? Like you could use it as a bail, but there's like really no room. Has that ever happened to you? And so I make this halfway not bail, and you know, I take those wires at the end and I tie it to itself, basically, as you can see. So this is what it should really look like. The thing about it is it's not very strong and it doesn't look that great, but we're going to cover it up just a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to take those thick ass wires and we're going to go across, and we're going to tie it down on the opposite side, and then we're going to do the same thing with the other wire on the opposite side. So it just gives it a little bit of strength and dexterity. So we're keeping it real simple. We're just going to do a loop through the bottom and just tie it down real nice and easy. Just going to pull it through, and that's going to be holding the bail that you just made and the wire itself. You know what I'm saying? Can you see what I'm doing? And then we're going to do the same thing to the opposite side. So I wrap it around at least twice on itself, just so it's got, it's got a good anchor point. And then I just clip off the excess. And now we're left with the weaving pattern that we did earlier. Now, look at that, man. It's really come together. I'm really hard on myself, but I kind of just wanted to give you guys an idea of what you can do. Just keeping it real simple. I kind of rushed this a little bit, but sometimes keeping it simple, like you run into different ideas of what you can do and what you really can't do. So I take the two thick wires that are left, and I start wrapping those two together. Okay, so it's like they're meeting in the back, in the middle, and I start wrapping it with some 24 half round dead soft again. So I only do maybe about 10 or 12 wraps, because I'm going to send those two strands of wire just over the top of the gemstone. But before we do that, I take the rest of what's left, and I just try to tie it down as neatly and as simply as possible on the half bail, half not a bail. That's what makes it not a bail, because I use the loop that's supposed to be the bail as a spot to anchor the rest of these wires. And pretty much you can't really stick a chain through there. So, I just kind of work with what I got. And I use those, the thick wires to make kind of like another bail on the back. So as you can see, I don't really have many options left with this wire that I have. So I just start tying it down really anywhere feasible and just trying to keep it as neat as possible. Now, these two last wires, I don't know why I don't have footage of it, but what I do is I stick those two wires just below the bail and just on top of the stone, and I go pretty much over the front and then back through kind of like where the prong setting wires are, like of the actual prong setting, back to the back, and just anchor it down so it gives it like a little bit more dexterity. And at this point, the wire wrap is finished. So once all that's complete, I end up oxidizing and polishing the entire piece. The citrine is bright and beautiful. The gold at the bottom is beautiful. It's a lovely piece. And now I present to you one of my latest projects that I'm absolutely in love with. I feel like I don't have to oxidize and polish this, but I know if I do, it's going to be absolutely stunning with the layering of the gold and the silver. It's just absolutely beautiful. I just use more coils in this project, way more coils, and some other little wire tricks. And I also have this key that I've created. Now, I didn't use as many coils, but I used some other simple techniques that I learned on YouTube from other creators, and I'm just putting it all together and just working with what I have. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Comment down below what you think, what you're feeling. Have a wonderful day.